Hello guys, in this video I'm gonna demonstrate the reactive camera component and how easy it is to set it up and pretty much how it works. So let's get on it. Now the reactive camera component is essentially an actor component where you can attach on any actor, either the character or the player controller or what have you. And by hooking up uh, forward and right inputs to it, you can have your camera behave in much more impressive and dynamic ways than it usually does. So I'm going to show you how to set up the component and use it on the many of Unreal Engine project templates. So let me show you how to do that. Now let's begin on the rolling template. I already have the camera component here. So let me show you how to hook it up. You can hook the component up in less than a minute. It is that easy. So let me show you how to do that. Now, the component actually requires um, a spring arm and a camera component for it to work. Now, first what we need to do is initialize the component. So let me add a begin play function here and call the initialize function on the reactive camera component. Now this takes two inputs. The one is the spring arm component, which is the camera boom essentially, and the other is the camera. So there we go. This is initialized. Now, what we need to do is update the camera on each tick. Now, there's no tick function here, so let me create one. And again, what you need to do is just call the update camera on every tick and pass in the delta seconds and a forward and right value. Now, to pass the forward and right value, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the input axis movement. So what I'm going to do is create two floats here, one for the right value if I manage to type correctly. Okay, and one for the forward value. And I'm going to hook this up here. Now to update these, I'm just going to set them accordingly whenever there's a movement. And there we go. Now, let me show you a little bit of the properties we have for the reactive camera component. There's a lot of properties here. I'm not going to go through every one of them just to keep this video short, but I have set some defaults here. So the forward input properties is how the camera will behave on forward input, and the right input properties is how the camera will behave on right input. The pullback distance is how much the camera will pull back or zoom out whenever there's an input. And you can see there's a pullback condition here. So whenever there's a forward input or a right input, both, uh, there's a few properties here that you can play with. Now, let me disable this plugin first and show you how it is without the plugin. This is pretty much the rolling template that you're aware of. Pretty good. Now let's see what happens when I enable this plugin. See, now there's a subtle movement on the camera which reacts according to your input. So if I were to, now I'm pressing the left button now. See how the camera reacts? Now I'm pressing the right button. And you can adjust the values of this, how quickly it will manipulate the camera, the distance it will zoom out, how fast it will zoom out. Um, you can do this from right here. Let me make this a little bit more apparent so you can see. Let's crank this up a little bit. Let's have the pullback distance to 200. Um, yeah, that should be good. All right, let's see. Yeah, now it's more apparent. See? So the idea is that you will have your input affect your camera or make your camera more dynamic. For example, you could use this. Um, this will be much better used in top-down games or action RPG games where You have point and click, and you want your camera to be able to rotate towards the direction you're going just to see a little bit more of the world. I'm going to show you that in a bit. So this is the rolling template. You see how easy it is to set it up. All it requires is initialization um, and update the camera on every tick. Okay, so let's move on to the vehicle template. Now I've already migrated the component to this project, so let's go and hook it up. I'm going to hook this up on the on the wheeled vehicle. We already have a begin play function, so let's initialize the component. Okay, so we want the spring arm and the camera. Let's have this right here. Now we already have inputs. We have a move right input axis and a move forward input axis. So let's create two floats. And set them accordingly. And let's also update the camera on every tick. Okay, again, let me disable the component so you can see how it is without it. Pretty decent. Now let's see how it is with the component activated. There you go. Let's say that's much better. Again, you have the camera reacting to the input. Now, like I said, there's a lot of properties you can play with, but let me show you one. Uh, you have a property here called apply on camera instead of boom. Now, by default, the component will apply manipulations on the spring arm instead of the camera. By checking these, by checking this, you essentially force the component to apply manipulations on the camera instead of the boom. Now, let me show you how this differentiates things. See, this is a little bit different. So there's a lot of properties you can play with. Let's see, what else do we have here? The input condition is basically telling the component on which input it should react on. So let's say if you have forward, let's say forward only, then the component will only, the camera will only react on forward input. Now see, while I'm pressing the right key right now, it doesn't do anything. So yeah, this is the vehicle template. Let's move on. Okay, moving on to the side scroll template. I've already set this up. Let me show you how. It's a pretty standard thing. Initialize it on begin play, update the camera on every tick. Now for the side scroller template, because we don't have a forward value, essentially it's only uh, the right value, we don't need to plug in anything here. So again, let me show you how this behaves without the component active. Pretty standard. And now let me show you how it works with the component active. There we go. See how the camera rotates toward the direction you're heading? It's much better. Let me show you one other thing here. Uh, the pullback distance property is essentially the amount of distance that the spring arm component will pull back. Now you can set this to 0 and play with something else. You can play with FOV, pullback distance, which is the field of view. Now this will apply manipulations on the field of view of the camera. So let me just set this to 20 and see how this behaves. See, this is essentially the same effect, but not quite. This manipulates only the field of view of the camera. So you can see a little bit more of the world while you're moving. There we go. Okay, so let's move on to the next template. Right, so for the twin stick template, I've already initialized the component right here, and I've already hooked up the update method, and I've hooked this up to the get move forward and get move right methods, which already exists in the template. So again, let me show you how it works without it. There you go. And let's enable the plugin. There you go. Much better. Now let's play around with the properties a little bit and see how it works. Now what you just saw had no pullback distance on it, so there was no zooming out. Let's put that to 200 and see. Yeah, it's pretty good. Now, what I want to show you is what happens when you apply this on the camera instead of the boom. Now, the effect is more apparent here on this template. So there, see, this is what happens. So the effect is applied on the camera now instead of the spring arm component. And there you go. So this is pretty much what the reactive camera component is all about. It fits any kind of template, which essentially consists of a camera system with the spring arm and a camera on it. Um, there's tons of options you can play around with, tons of effects um, you can achieve. You can even hook this up to other inputs. I don't know, such as maybe sine graphs or what have you. It doesn't have to be player input. Um, you can get a myriad of effects for your game. The package on the marketplace comes with a very detailed documentation. If you have any questions, please email me or leave a comment below. And this will wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.